Those of you who are here, thank you for joining. We've got your name there.
Can you hear us now?
Can you tell us where you're coming from?
Let's just make sure we got sound going here. Is there
You're not in the chat.
sound? Let us know if you can hear us now. I think I fixed the problem, but let's see.
Can hear now.
Can
She
hear
says
now.
yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you for that. Okay, so back to our little synopsis. So we're trying to help people live fully alive. It is the fully alive revolution. And as each of us live fully alive, it is contagious, and the revolution will be fully alive people spawning off fully alive people. Then just recently we were talking about
Let me redefine
fear.
it. Let me redefine it, because you didn't hear me say this, but the definition of courage is the ability to do something that frightens you. And
So it's connected with fear.
It's moving past your fear into that new place. It's like, for me, it's like the children of Israel, where they're walking around the promised land for 40 years and they cross over the Jordan into the promised land. That was courage moving forward. 40 years before, there was Joshua and Caleb said, you can go.
Yes.
But everyone else said, you can't. Now, at this point, they're saying, let's go. And they cross together.
So we talked recently about observe your fear and not just have a look at it, but be mindful of what's causing you to be afraid or what's causing you to be stuck. And then today we want to talk about courage, how not to be stuck, but to go for it with imagination and purpose. And next week, we're going to start to talk about imagination. We might need a few weeks on that because it's such a big subject. But today is all about courage.
We want to thank Cheryl Potter for being on and Linda for being on. Other ones that I see coming in, welcome. If you're watching live, if you're coming in on a replay, welcome to this Duzie Live looking at courage.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. We're gonna invite you at any time to go down to the chat and to ask a question, leave a comment, an emotional outburst, a question about anything that you're seeing, that you're hearing, that you're thinking. We love for this time to be a time of engagement between you and us. So at any time, you just put that in. From time to time, we'll scroll through and see what you're writing about and pull those things together. That will be great.
On the way to just push the button to start, I came out of my office and there was a hat. And I've been thinking, what are the hats of courage? And I'll show a few today as we go through. But this is the one I grabbed. And there's a story behind it. This hat is from the Civil War. Now, this is just a reproduction of the one from the Civil War. But there was the North and there was the South. There was the gray and there was the blue.
That was here in the USA.
In the USA,
yeah.
Right. And it was a terrible, terrible war. But you knew who was on what side because of the color hat they wore. Now, this one is red. And there wasn't a red side. So I began to research what was the red hat for during the Civil War. And it was the person who was in charge of the cannon on both sides. Now get this. You got a whole sea of people in gray hats or in blue hats. And there you have the guy who's going to shoot the cannon running around in a red hat. And I thought, how brave that person would have had to be. I mean, if you want to take someone
That's
out,
a lot of courage.
You want to take down the guy who knows how to run the cannon. And on both sides, one person or however many cannons they had, that was the red hat. What courage it took to go, I'm going into battle today with a whole army, but I'm wearing the red hat. And sometimes I think we feel that way. We feel that, why doesn't anyone else have to step into courage? And some people don't. They don't show up. But it's those who do that I believe take us forward. And so for me in my life for the last few weeks, really look at courage. It's like, what is stopping me? And really look at, where do I want to go? And am I pursuing that with courage, or am I stepping back and living in fear?
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us. Now we want to go here. We've been advertising the Iceman, the Canadian man from Canada. This is my cousin, John Mark Earle, and we're really focusing on his story. And do you want to just set this up a little bit?
Yeah. So John Mark, he's a carpenter. He lives 5 hours north of Edmonton. So in the wintertime, now this would be in Celsius, but it's really cold. It's like 30 below, 40 below.
So here's the map. I don't know if you can see it. No, not so much.
There you go.
Okay. Here is the map. Oh, I've got some notifications going on here. Here is the map. So we're way down here in the USA. And this is the Canadian-American border, and he's way up there north.
Yeah. So
got a frog.
He in December had this idea about taking a polar bear plunge. What that means is you cut the ice out of a river or a lake, cold. And you jump into the river. And normally it's you jump in, you get a picture taken, you jump out. Something happened that he was very afraid to do this, and he decided, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to continue to do this. And I'd like to show you a video of his progress. We've been following him every single day. Matter of fact, at 2 o'clock today, in our second webinar, he's going to be on live, and we're going to be talking about this journey, because now he's done that over 80 days. Yeah. And I just find this incredible. It's courage, and we're going to watch this video. While we're watching the video, it's going to be a little long. I'll probably stop it a little bit after 4 or 5 minutes, but we'll be in the chat, and we'd love to talk to you why we are looking at John Mark's journey. So get my headphones on here, and we will start the video.
It was a daunting and teeth-chattering experience for those who took part in Edmonton's annual polar plunge on Sunday in support of the Special Olympics.
Shock of hitting the water never changes. It's that instantaneous, like, it's cold, and you almost takes your breath away.
Now this one-day challenge inspired an Alberta man to go one step further. John Mark Earle has decided to plunge every day of winter. He started on December 16th and will go until March 19th in his hometown of Peace River, which is 5 hours north of Edmonton.
Wind chill of minus 47. That was the coldest day we went in, or I went in. And psychologically, that's pretty tough to face.
His reason for doing the daily dip is to create awareness about mental health.
I think all of us face lots of stressors. And sometimes it feels like the stress that I'm feeling alone.
Woo-hoo! Even though it's always a shock to his system when he jumps in, John Mark says he appreciates how this pushes him out of his comfort zone.
It has more to do with a tendency to hide from the things that are uncomfortable, the things that might be scary. And I realize that when I am living my life from a position of fear, it's not my best life.
So far, John Mark has plunged for 42 days, so he still has a ways to go, but he's more than up for the challenge. From Edmonton, Cheryl Tasascu, City News.
I'm laying under the ice. Holy. Well, maybe it's too shallow right here. I think I'm good with that for today. Maybe a little more. Go for 222. 18. Not bad. 222. Woo! When I went in yesterday, this is where I cut my notch and went swimming out from. So it's frozen another 40 feet. So this stuff here isn't thick enough for me to actually walk on.
This is something else. Day 22. Woo!
It is freezing cold. You can tell by the sound of the snow. So this is just a light dusting of snow on the ground. But you can hear the squish it makes.
Oh yeah. It's kind of weird.
She's running.
Yeah, I grabbed some milk and we'll go. Oh yeah, that's awesome. How far do you have to go to get that?
Your socks are smoking.
Just past Roma Drive. Oh yeah. Next turn right. Oh yeah. Woo! Take a throw. It's like a layer of ice on it. It's hard to use. There we go.
I can't even believe it.
Good thing we weren't here when it happened.
If we were out there, we'd be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told Joe Mark maybe that's why we went to the Heart River.
These are my shorts. That's how cold it is.
You should throw them to Bethany.
Like a frisbee. Yeah.
It's too funny.
Holy.
Don't break them. They might break.
Oh yeah, just snap them in half. Hey, Alicia. You got this, man.
Yeah.
Hey, love. Hey, babe.
I'm the producer for the Ryan Jesperson Show on 6:30 Chet in Edmonton. I'm calling, wondering if you have time tomorrow morning, about 11:50, to come on the show with Ryan to talk about your daily ice bath. Somebody sent us
Finally starting to
your
warm up.
Facebook page showing your pictures of your ice bath. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about it, reasoning behind it, if you got hypothermia from it, all that good stuff. It is just
The Ryan Jesperson Show, weekday mornings at 9 on 6:30 Chet. I just spent the last few minutes cruising John Mark Earle's Facebook profile. It is wild. This guy is taking daily dips in the Peace River. I'm looking at this one photo here. The guy is just locked in, eyes closed, hands in a position of prayer or meditation with a minus 47-degree wind chill reality. Unbelievable. The owner-operator of Peace River Homes, kind enough to join us this morning over the phone. A good morning to you.
Yeah.
Good morning. I've never met you, and I will already put you in legend category. How did this thing get started? These photos, John, are amazing.
Hey, these ballots are complimentary from our local auto parts supply store, Pat's Auto Supply. He was in the south end. So this ice here is this something called the bottom.
Ah, did it float up?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are back. I was putting all that together yesterday and blew me away. There's another at least 15 minutes of just his Instagram posts and what he's feeling and how he's challenging people. And it is done so much to me that this guy is not a crazy guy going to sit in the ice. He is trying to conquer his fear, and he has the courage to every day go out there and cut the ice open. Some days where he was with his ice, he goes out the next day and it's gone. The whole area is
2 inches covered over.
2 inches covered. They've had to move to different places. One day they had to move to one place, and I think the story is if they would have been in the water at the time, they would have been crushed by all the ice jam packing on top of each other. It's a crazy story, but we've been following him almost every day.
Yeah, so I think today is day 87, if I have it right. And I just want to read a couple excerpts from his Facebook. I'll write his name down there. His name is John Mark Earle, and he's both on Facebook. And these videos you've seen are from his Instagram story, and you can go on and watch every single one of them. It's incredible. But yeah, Linda was saying, yeah, he doesn't just get in and out like the normal polar dip. He is working up.
Sometimes 10 minutes.
10 minutes. 10 minutes has been one of the things. And it's also the thing about courage is contagious. And just like fear is also contagious, courage is contagious. And he is growing a group of following. He's had people conquer his fears. His wife, Melissa, she says, what's my polar bear dip? The things in my life that I want to show up, conquer the fear, not allow other people's fear to mix with my own emotions and stop me, where I feel like I can do anything, something I'm doing consecutively. So that's so outside of my comfort zone. But when I do, I feel like a rock star. So maybe I'm not a polar bear rock star like John is. Maybe you aren't either. But there are areas where you are. And I think this challenge of his story is something that's really very exciting. So, you know, it looks like, oh, he's just doing it. But here's a post very early on. He writes, the last few dips were pretty intense. Today was so much better. I felt loose and let myself experience the cold today without an emotional reaction to it. When we go through life, we decide to react to the things that take place around us. We can let them happen or just be, or we can get involved and have emotional reactions and connections to our circumstances. There's a sense that by getting involved in a dramatic way, we are taking control somehow. But we are the most powerful when we hold space for ourselves to be. We can be free from the chaos that we are constantly bombarded from. We can enter our rest at any time we want. It just takes a decision. Today, I found that peace in the frigid waters. How do you find yours?
It's very interesting.
Really
as you go through this story, you start off on the first week of the water is the enemy. The water is the fear point. I can't get my foot in. I can't get my leg in. I can't. It's screaming. It's pain.
Yeah.
And then not too long afterwards, you see him swimming in the river. It's just incredible. You see him at first by himself or with a friend,
right,
and then a family member, and then the news comes out, and then he's being interviewed. There is this motion that takes place when we step into courage. That it's sometimes we look at the lone nut, but what makes it a movement is other people that start getting involved. His courage became very, very contagious.
Yeah. So here's another one. This was his day 31. He said, I was saying prayers for this dip. It was so cold. The air temperature with the wind chill was minus 47, and this is Celsius.
I don't know what that is in Australia, but it's cold.
Wow. And it was so intense, yet so absurd. I couldn't help but laugh after because I couldn't even believe I did that. Any other winter, I would be hiding in my house. This year is different. And I think it speaks to steps towards how do we walk in courage? Well, you can walk in courage by taking 3 steps. And we were thinking about this. What does it take to walk in courage? What's the picture that we have to have here?
Well, I think for me, the picture of courage is like a journey. You're on a path. And if I am going to be on that path moving forward in courage, the first step would be I need to look at the future. Where do I want to go? For John Mark, he wants to conquer his fear. He wants to learn how to speak something else to his brain, to actually sit back and not get all emotional about it. There are so many things in our life that happen and we explode or we're scared to step in the water. And I think the first step to courage is we have to look at the future and say, where is it that we want to go?
Get the big picture.
If, like John Mark, we say, I want to do 100 days in the water, that's out there.
Yeah.
That is beyond us. But if you say, I want to sit in my couch, there's no courage to that. But it's when we look into the future, where do we want to go?
Yeah. So then the next one is be present where you're at. Be real, be mindful. Be honest with yourself. So observe your fear. What is it that's stopping? If courage is the ability to do something that frightens you, many people say, do it afraid. Then you have to observe your fear, identify it, and really see if it's a healthy fear. Yes, we should have fears many times because that keeps us in a safe place. But sometimes mentally we get afraid and we're not able to take those steps forward. So see where you want to go and then be present where you're at and what's stopping you, what's making you stuck, what are you in fear about.
I think also within that, we're going to be looking at Brene Brown and some of her teaching also with courage. But there is this need in the midst of the present reality to be vulnerable, to admit what the risk is, to admit what the fear is in the moment, to step into relationships rather than out of relationships.
Right.
So that's the present. And the last one for me is really to occupy the next moment. It's how do I move forward?
Steps.
What are the little steps to move forward? So if we look at this on the road, there's the future. That's what I want to go. I talked to marathoners. And they never looked at where their feet are. They're looking to the next tree, the next sign, the next crossroad. They're always looking ahead.
Forward.
But they have to also look at the present. I need to put on my shoes. I need to get ready for this. And they begin to observe what is their next moment.
So you can walk in fear by taking the 3 steps we just described. So you want to look to the future, where you want to go, get that picture, and then you stay in the present. What's going on here? What's my fear? What's stopping me? Where am I stuck? And then take steps to occupy that space between here and here and go for it. I think in all of our talks, we've been talking about little steps. There is such value in small steps.
Yeah.
I believe it, as I understand it, John Mark Earle, who we've been looking at here, his small step was to raise money for these kids who didn't have homes right before Christmas time. So it was December 16th, and there was a group, I think it was him and his son initially, who jumped in the water. And there was a fear that he had to get in there, and he did it, and he conquered it. And that little small step gave him momentum. And somehow in the process, he decided he was going to do it for 100 days for all of winter. Now, we just came from Michigan, and they have winter there. Now we're back in Georgia. We have less winter here. But up in Canada, they have a lot of winter. So those are big steps to say you're going to do it for 100 days. And one thing that he also wrote here is a post from January 22nd from John Mark Earle, and he said, "How many of us make time for the things that we really love to do? I spend about 1.5 to 2 hours every day getting ready for my ice dip. I get my things together. I usually bring a blanket to stand on, 2 towels, shorts, my fire starting gear, and warm clothes for after. We cut the hole and start the fire. There have been 4 of us going most days. So Melissa Earle, which is his wife, my niece, Johnson, party of 7. I think that's his sister. Fastest jet boat sink. These are all their social media names. And myself. By the time that we've all gotten into the water and then warmed up by the fire, 2 hours has gone by. I have let myself believe that there are things that I don't have time to do, but when there's something that's really important to me, like getting into the cold water, that statement's a little funny to me, I made time. Let's stop making excuses for the things that are important to us. Today, make time for something that you love. And that was day 38.
When I hear this story, I oftentimes think of David and Goliath.
Yeah.
Here's a situation where you have David. Now, David is the youngest of 7 or 8 brothers. He may be number 7 or number 8. He's out in the field. His older brothers have gone to war. He is he's taking the cheese. Okay, that's his role. I'm taking the cheese to my brothers. And he gets there and he sees the Goliath. He sees the warrior, 10 feet tall. And everyone else is afraid. And like Susie said, fear is contagious. It would have been so easy for David to go, whoa, no, good job, guys, for being afraid. But he didn't allow those outside voices to speak into his life. He remembered back. And I think oftentimes courage needs us to take a moment and say, well, the last time I did this, nothing bad happened, or other people, nothing has happened. Right now, especially with the virus all over the world, there is this fear going on.
Yeah, that's right.
And in David and Goliath, you have the David who steps up and go, but the giant has to go. He could see the future. We as a people cannot exist, David is thinking, unless that giant goes. So he sees that. Then he looks at the present reality. Now everyone gathers around him, and they're either saying, don't do it, go home, you little dog. Or they're saying, put on all my armor, do it my way. And he has to step out and really occupy the next moment. He has to be himself, but see himself as taking down the giant. That's where the imagination comes in as well. But he first of all has to have that courage to say,
yeah,
I'm going to do this. And as followers of Jesus, it's so much bigger because we're not just standing in our own shadow. We're standing in the shadow of God Almighty. There is nothing that can take down God. And so David steps out in courage because he's surrounded by the creator of all things. Yeah. And I sometimes have to laugh at myself. Why am I so afraid of this? It's like, does God even know? Yes, God knows. And he fights for us. So when I think about what John Mark is doing, when I look at David, it just encourages me to take some of those simple steps forward one at a time.
Yeah, in Joshua 1:9, it talks about be strong and courageous. So we were looking up, like, is courage a noun? Is it a verb? How do we understand courage? Yeah, it's something we have to do. It's the ability to do something that frightens one, is what the definition does. But there's just so many ways that in the Bible it talks about courage.
Yeah, there are 19 times where it talks about courage, 13 times where it talks about be courageous. And all except for 2 times in the Bible, it is be strong and be courageous. It is courageous. It is this moving ahead. It's a being. But let me read you some of the words that come before courage. No longer had courage, lost courage, found courage, took courage, acted with courage, take courage, courage melted away, courage endures, stir up courage, saw the courage, keep your courage, have sufficient courage. All of these are like, it's like health. It is more than just, this is an emotion you need to have, put on your little courageous emotion. No, this is something you take up. This is something you hold. This is something you find. This is something you lose. And I really enjoyed looking through the scriptures, because it's so different than just love somebody, just do something. This is like when you put on the full armor of God. This is put on.
It's a big deal. Yes, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
I love this verse that comes from 2 Corinthians chapter 6 from the Message, verses 11 to 13. And this is Paul writing, but just think of courage when you think of this. Dear Corinthians, I can't tell you how much I long for you to enter this wide open, spacious life.
Oh, stop it. This is
think
incredible.
Courage. Yeah, think courage.
Spacious
wide
life.
Open, spacious life. We didn't fence you in. The smallness you feel comes from within you. Your lives aren't small, but you're living them in a small way. I'm speaking as plainly as I can and with great affection. Open up your lives. Live openly and expansively. And I love that when you think about it in courage, as you put courage in there, and as we think about living our fully alive life, holding nothing back, not being stopped in that space, not being so much in your comfort zone, but again, not in the panic. You're just moving towards. We talked about that in the exposure model tool that we were using when we were talking about fear. If you're going to be able to have courage and do something that frightens you, you've got to move from doing nothing to doing something and to doing the right thing, but with courage.
If you didn't get that, that's in the Message. It's 2 Corinthians 6, 11 through 13. This is really powerful stuff.
Yeah.
It's entering wide open, spacious life. Don't get fenced in. It talks about smallness.
Small and wide open.
This is open up your lives.
Yeah.
Live openly and expansively. I believe this is the life of courage. And it isn't just something that you can be a Christian and maybe be a little courageous sometimes. This is life. This is Zoe life. Zoe life is a life of vitality, and I do not believe that we can have it unless we live with courage.
Yeah. So how are you doing in living with courage? We put out a little poll. When 10 being high and 1 being low, how do I rate my courage? And we said 8 to 10, 5 to 7, or 4 or below. And 100% of you, thank you for taking the poll. Too. You said 5 to 7. So you're somewhere in the middle. I think it absolutely, for me anyways, it depends on what I have to have courage about. And we were thinking yesterday and this morning, like, what are things that we have had to have courage about? And what are things that we currently have to have courage about? And if you can think about that and just write that down in the chat, what are some of the things that you have to have courage about? Write that, and we'd love to have a chat about that. But
oftentimes that moment of needing courage is not when you wake up from bed and go, I think I'll have courage today. It normally is because Goliath woke up before you. Normally courage, you can't have courage without risk. So it isn't just, I have this goal, so I will be courageous. Something happens. For instance, in this whole area for Suzie and I of launching this whole thing into life and living fully alive and the fully alive revolution
new season of
and
life.
These courses and Duzie Life, all these things came from the fact that much of what we were doing was finished, was over. It had just sort of disappeared. And it was like, well, what do we do next? And I was thinking, well, I could go drive an Uber car. It was like, totally, I'm not against anybody who drives Uber cars, but for me, it was like, well, there was no courage there. It was just like, I guess I could do that next. And there was this call for courage to step out and climb the mountain.
Yes.
It wasn't time to go and sit down and have a little cappuccino. It was time to climb the mountain. And it's taken some days. There's been some panic. There's been some, what are we doing here? Relearning things. But it wasn't in the decision that, well, I guess we should do something brave. It was, we have to do something now or else.
Yeah. So what is it that you have to be brave about? For us, it's definitely being in this season of life, having this new platform of coming online. And it honestly is just exactly what we're talking about. Walking in courage by taking these steps. Where do we want to be? We want to have the connections with people all over the world, which we're blessed to be able to be in the process of doing. Looking at our fears here. Well, many of our fears had to do with not knowing the platform and not knowing what it would take. So our steps have been learning and taking courses and stepping into those places, even if we're not perfect in it. Trying to show up here on Duzie Live every week, courageously going for what we have. Maybe we don't have a lot to give at the moment, but what we do have, we're showing up with that. And occupying that moment and then continuing to go on, pressing forward towards the goal, Paul says, trying to win that prize, going for that thing, pressing forward step by step by step.
One of the things that Suzie has done that's really impressed me lately is for a long time, we've been talking about our health, that we need to get well. I have more weight on me today than I think I ever have in my life. And it's really easy to sit back and go, wow, that's not good. It's easy to stay in the observe your fear. But Suzie, 12 days ago, she started doing this exercise program, and it is so great to watch. I'm not right there yet.
Almost. You're almost there, right?
Yeah, but we were talking about why is it that she's getting up and she's doing it and I'm not? Because I'm still stuck in fear. What if I hurt myself? What if I can't do it? What if? And I just want to tell you here and now, today will be my first day to do a complete workout. And it's not because I'm here. You're hearing it live. But I realize right here and now, it's a lack of courage.
Yeah.
I need to step out and say, I am going to do this, and it will hurt. I will not like this. This will not be fun.
Yep.
I think we have to not just observe our fear, but we need to look at, if we've observed our fear, how then do we move forward? Or how do we walk in courage to have that new life, that next moment? And for me, this last 12 days, it's been easy to watch Suzie go from, I don't want to do this, to, I did this.
Yeah.
To me going, I should do this. And today saying, I will do this.
Yeah. So I just signed up for a free program online, and the girl is called Betty Rocker, and she actually, it's amazing because she's very motivational, and she does these like amazingly difficult exercises, but she says, you can break it down into this. So I'm in a little step. I can't do it as great as she does yet, but honestly, every day I'm getting stronger and I'm able to do more than when I started. And I think this is the picture. I'm walking in courage about, I was like, Dan, I'm like, I need to continue to get in shape. We're walking, we're exercising, we're getting our steps, but I need another level. As those of you who have been following us, you know that we've been trying to be healthy and exercise, and this was another level. And so now I'm on day 12. It's 15 minutes of intense exercise, and it's like I can do hard things. I can do 15 minutes, and I'm seeing the benefit of it. And I think that's what happens when you walk in courage. There begins to be momentum. Like, my goal is to be in shape. And so I've got to take these little steps of exercising. Like, I'm already having my God time. I'm already walking. I'm already doing this. What is one more level of living fully alive? And this is it. So it's really cool.
Yeah, we have a comment here about oftentimes the courage is needed in initiating new ministry projects in our town. Oh, isn't that true? It is when
getting started.
When we step into the new, you're always going to have people say, "Oh, don't go there. You shouldn't go there." Even we'll tell ourselves, "Well, Is this really important? Who am I? All those questions come. And the incredible thing in that is when you step into it is the only time and the only way you're going to find out the effectiveness.
Yeah, thank you for sharing
that. Is risk. You may we've stepped into several new initiatives only to find out that's probably not going to work. But people don't walk around and say, remember that one that didn't work? No, they talk about the ones that did work.
Yeah.
And I think like Edison with the light bulb, 2,000 times he had to fail. He had to
be courageous.
He had to be courageous.
Courageous,
to the 2,000 time. And that's what I would say with initiating, beginning new ministries. You got to step out there, ask questions, do it with community if possible. But that's the only way you're going to find out, is that going to be effective? And with the generations changing, we have to always have new models. Things are changing so quickly. We've got to step out and step out and step out because there's always a next moment.
Yeah. So one of the studies that I did was building a courageous mindset. And I really like this. So I'm just going to flip through it really quick. Is really building a courageous mindset, having courage to initiate or to fill that space between where we're going and where we currently are stuck or living in fear. And building a courageous mindset, number one, embrace your fear. So we talked about observe your fear, embrace it. Do something in spite of your fear. Number two, try not to hesitate. Now, I found this one very interesting. And it's true. The longer your brain has to come up with excuses, the more time you'll have to panic about hypothetical or real negative outcomes. So try not to hesitate. When you get an idea and you think, I should be brave, I should have courage, I should not be stuck in fear, don't hesitate. Go for it. Number three, learn to be mindful. And this speaks as well of being fully present in the current moment and take time to learn it. And I think
that's really living in the moment.
Yeah.
Not moving quickly through it.
Yeah. I think for me, that comes when I'm doing my morning pages, when I'm having my God time, when I give God space to allow myself to be real with where I'm at and bring that to God and bring that to myself and be honest with myself. And number four, get outside of your comfort zone. It might cause anxiety, but it's great to learn courage. Start small and know your limits. So don't go too fast, but begin to go outside your comfort zone.
Now stop right there at 4 for a second. Just stop at 4. I got to tell you this. I got to show you another hat.
Oh, out of your comfort zone, you got a hat for this.
This is my out of my comfort zone hat.
Dun 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 dun.
I am a person that is accident prone because
how accident prone are you?
I have broken 22 bones of my body.
Very accident prone.
I'm not sure why they happen, but this hat is a new protective device I've just bought because I bought a. Do you know those surfboards that you have the paddle? I think it's called paddle boards. Well,
for the water, right?
I bought one for land. It's a paddle board on wheels, and I've got this paddle for the cement, and I am going to move forward and learn how to do that. The only problem is I've had it for 2 weeks and I haven't been on it yet because I'm so scared. My comfort zone.
Number 4, get out of your comfort zone.
I want to work on my core. This is a great way of exercising my core. But having it in my garage has done nothing for my figure. I just have to tell you, nothing.
This is the day you're going to do it?
So,
ooh, you did say you were going to get going.
But when Suzie was talking about comfort zone, that it reminded me of this hat. I mean, I'm more comfortable because I have this hat moving forward. I don't know what's going to happen when I get on there, especially around here because there are hills.
Nothing's flat.
What if I'm trying to go and I end up going backwards? What if I land on my arms? All those things are what ifs.
Yep.
But if I live in the what ifs, that land board is going to remain in my garage. And this is going to remain without a single scratch on it. We have to move out of that comfort zone if we're going to be courageous.
Now, one thing I really love about this is it's white. So we're going to be able to notice anything that happened while he was using this beautiful protective device.
Like 2 eyes. It looks sort of like Robot.
All right. So building a courageous mindset, a little recap, embrace your fear. Try not to hesitate, learn to be mindful, get outside your comfort zone. And the fifth, build confidence. It allows you to trust in your abilities and yourself. You are more than your fears. You're more than your fears. I am. So some of the things that they say, fake it until you make it. So sometimes this has been me when I go swimming and I have to wear a bathing suit in public. I'm just like faking courage until I actually have enough courage to go. Don't let your failures or your limitations dictate who you are, and have faith in yourself. Dun, 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 dun.
I'm faking courage.
That's a beautiful looking courage.
It has the leather straps. I mean, if I were to walk around, someone might actually think that I have this. Oh, there we go.
That you are a Roman centurion.
Well, I don't know if they would think that, but they may think something. But sometimes I think we have to simply put it on. I love in Ephesians.
Put on your centurion
where it talks about put on the full armor of God, and the helmet is actually salvation. And sometimes we don't feel safe. We don't feel saved, but we put it on. We put it on. And I think I love that point 5 about building that confidence.
Yeah.
That
step by
we
step
move
by step.
forward. We occupy the next moment.
Yeah.
Do you like my new hat?
So
about wearing it to
some of
church
the
on
tips
Sunday.
here that I love that I just grabbed from the research. Being courageous takes practice. The more you face your fears and deal with your negative emotions, the easier it will get. Use courage. I love this one. Use courage to stand up for others who can't. And I'm trying to be courageous for you. Go for it, Dan. And the third is, and the final one, imagine you can do it until you no longer have to imagine. I love that. So you imagine yourself in that space where you're going until you don't have to imagine anymore, because you are there and you don't have to have courage. You're just in what we call the flow. You are flowing in who you are and what God's called you to do.
Now, we have been doing a lot of study on courage. And one of the ways we need to have courage is in relationships. And there is this lady we've been studying for, the last few years, Brene Brown. And she has a video that I found, and it's about 6 minutes long. I think we have time for it. And then we'll wrap up with that and then just have some talk. But it deals with this whole idea of the need for vulnerability and risk within courage.
And so Brene Brown says, there is no courage without uncertainty, risk, or vulnerability. And her latest book is Dare to Lead. So she does research, especially about vulnerability and shame, and she applies it to leadership. And she said, you have to have vulnerability and courage. And here is an interview that she has with a group of people asking her some really great questions. We can learn from it.
So we'll probably watch about 4 minutes. Here we go.
Best-selling author and social researcher. Her name is Brene Brown. She burst into public consciousness with her TED Talk in 2010. The Power of Vulnerability remains the site's 4th most popular talk. Listen to this. It has 36 million views. Wow. Today, Brene Brown is busy juggling consulting and speaking events at Fortune 500 companies, including IBM, Disney, and Google. Her new book focuses on how each of us can cultivate effective leadership. It's called Dare to Lead. Brave work, tough conversations, whole hearts. Brene Brown joins us once again, first on CBS This Morning to talk about her latest book. It's always good to have you at the table, Brene Brown.
Good morning.
It is a masterpiece. I love it. I love it. Love it.
Thanks.
Just the fact that you've had 36 million views says to me that people are very open to finding out more about this. But I know very few bosses and leaders that think it's okay to show vulnerability. But you say you can't have courage without vulnerability. What do you mean?
You know, it was interesting because I used to spend a lot of time when I'd go into these companies kind of evangelizing about vulnerability. It's important. Then one day I found myself on a military base talking to special forces. And I just asked a simple question. Give me an example of courage that you've seen or witnessed in your life, or that you've done yourself, that didn't require uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure, which is the definition of vulnerability. Give me a single example of courage that did not require that. And there was just silence until one guy just raised his hand and said, 3 tours, ma'am. There is no courage without vulnerability. And so now I just ask audiences that simple question. Give me an example of courage that doesn't require uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure.
You say most people think of courage as a personality trait, not a skill. You say it's a skill.
It's a skill set. I mean, we've been studying it I've been doing this work for 20 years, the last 7 years, really looking at courage and leadership specifically. 4 skill sets. Can you rumble with vulnerability? Can you stay in tough things when they get uncomfortable and awkward, or do you tap out? 2, and this is a hard one, living into your values. Are you clear about what your values are, and have you operationalized those into behaviors? Do you know what behaviors support your values, what don't? 3, braving trust. Can you build trust and be trustworthy? And the last one, which I think was really interesting, was learning how to get back up, learning how to rise. Because we found that people are more willing to be courageous up front if they know how to rise.
Yeah, I mean, that's why, sorry, John, that's why I called this a masterpiece. Because to just sum up everything, and then you write, courage is contagious. To scale daring leadership and build courage in teams and organizations, we have to cultivate a culture in which brave work, tough conversations, whole hearts, the expectation in armor is not unnecessary or rewarded. That's the thing, because people want to know, how do we scale this type of behavior? Yeah.
Courage is incredibly contagious, as is fear, as we can see in the world, as is scarcity. And so courage is contagious, and we can teach it, we can learn it, we can measure it, and we have to create cultures where being armored all the time is not rewarded behavior.
So, first of all, as a disciple of the...
All right, we'll just stop it right there.
Just jump back into it. I love what she said. You can't have courage without vulnerability, and vulnerability includes uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. And I love that she said it's a skill set. So just as we've been talking about, we have to walk in courage. We have to develop our resilience and our courageous mindset. She said, can you rumble with vulnerability? Can you live with your values? Do you even know what's important to you?
Very important.
Can you be brave with trust? And that whole picture of trust is choosing in relationships to have boundaries and being reliable and accountable and being confidential and having integrity, not judging, and giving generosity to people. Like, you allow them to truly be who they are. And then the 4th, can you learn to rise or get back up again? And I think that speaks of resilience. So you might not only have to be courageous one time, we have to be courageous every little step towards the goal that we're going in.
Yeah. So that's been something that's really encouraged us on this journey to look at, do I want to be a person that is inspiring bravery or fear? Do I want to live only looking at other people being courageous, or do I want to be courageous? It's funny, several times, even while I've been talking today, for me, courage and creativity go right together.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes even my word will be mixing courage and creativity. And Suzie keeps saying, no, this is how you actually say it. But in my mind,
courageous, he's got a new word going.
I can't even say it right. The life I want to live is this creative, courageous life.
Courageous.
And so that's just the, when I listen to Brene, when I'm reading the Bible, that passage and the message just so inspires me to live that spacious life that's willing to say, yes, let's move into the promised land.
Yeah, so thank you for joining us live or on the replay. Wonder if you have any questions, comments, emotional outbursts, concerns, responses. What has been your highlight? The motivation of what we've experienced so far today. I think it's, for me personally, while I'm waiting for you to just write it in the chat.
What are they writing again?
Just what stands out for you today? Like, what's your highlight, or what did you hear that you're going to take away, because we can learn from that. But for me, I think the fully alive flow has to do, especially in these days for me, about identifying my fear and not being stuck in the fear, having courage, and then moving forward in imagination. And I think that's where we're going next week as well. We have one more Duzie live webinar at 2:00 our time. So that's in about how many hours? Can you help me figure that out? 9, 10, 11, 12, 2, 5 hours from now. We're going to have another Duzie live, and Mark Earle, who we saw in the video earlier, he's going to join us as long as we can get all of the technology synced up. But he's going to join us, and we're going towards imagination. And that imagination is having faith to live in that space. So they're building on each other, not being stuck by fear, having courage, and going for imagination.
So I think for me, the thing I want to walk away with today and remember is courage isn't doing the big things.
Yeah.
It's doing the small things well.
Yes.
And not stopping there, because the small steps will get me to a new place. So oftentimes I'm thinking courage is what's that big thing, but it's the 1,000 small things that move me to way out there.
That's quotable. That is that's a tweet, that's a comment, that you should write that down.
I will.
Courage is not, what was it? Can you repeat it?
I may have to re-listen.
Yeah, it's not doing the big things, it's doing the 1,000 things well, is what I heard. So it's those little steps, moment by moment, getting stronger, having faith. It's like Ephesians talks about letting our roots go down deep so that we can be filled with love and have the love of Jesus and the desire and the connectivity with him that motivates us and promotes us moving forward in such a powerful way.
Courage isn't doing the big things, but the 1,000 small things well.
Is what you said. Yeah. Bravo. A new quote.
Nice.
Dan almost has a new quote every day.
I love quotes.
One of the comments here, it's been good to hear your point about not hesitating. I think that's very true. Yeah. And Linda, that was exactly the same thing for me. That was the point of the whole thing that hit. Don't hesitate, because when we hesitate, it gives a chance for those fears to take more root. We've been talking about neural pathways and about training our brain to go for those light things and making wide roads in the direction where we want. And when we hesitate, we're giving space for that side road, not the place we want to go, but a different direction. So we really shouldn't hesitate, and we should go for it.
Yeah. So any questions before we finish? This has been, for me, a great time of revisiting the whole area of courage. And wow, I sometimes you prepare for this, and I know I always learn the most. So I'm going to have to go from here.
I don't know. I might have learned the most.
My journal a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. Another comment. Courage is also about the mundane. Yes. Sometimes it's easier to do the exciting stuff, but it's the ordinary life day by day that takes more courage. I completely agree with you.
I find this oftentimes
so good
as we work with young mothers, especially, that it's like, I'm not working, I'm at home, I'm changing diapers, I'm doing the same thing over and over again.
Or a student.
That takes courage.
A student going to class day after day after day. Or me exercising and day after day after day doing that little bit that is going to take me towards the direction where we want to be.
Courage is about the mundane. I love it.
Thank you for sharing that. So once again, you can walk in courage by taking 3 steps. First, look towards the future. Where do you want to go? Second, be present. Observe your fear. Observe the reality of where you are in the moment.
And then occupy the next moment.
That's the third.
How do you move forward in the little thousands of steps?
So we have loved being a part of this Duzie Live on courage. And we're not going to forget this subject, because our theme for this year, for 2020, is courageous imagination. So living in courage and having that imagination and the faith necessary to really walk in the way that God's showing us to walk. And so may you live with courage. May you live with courageous imagination in the starting and the initiating, in the mundane and the carrying on, and walking in those steps of courage.
Again, the word I think of is show up.
Yeah.
That's what I have to do. Show up.
Yeah. So may God bless you. May God keep you and allow you to live fully alive in the version that God's created you to live.
Talk to you next week.
We're loving life
and seeing good days.
God
Bye.
bless you. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye.